Okay, it's Monday, which means against my better judgment it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. If you're curious, yes, I just forgot it was Sunday, so we're doing it on Monday. You might also notice we're not looking at Reddit right now, we're looking at Dragon Ball FighterZ. And the reason for that is we're trying something new, seeing as we're already on a different day. And that is just to have something more visually interesting going on in the background than reading Reddit. I've decided to put some gameplay in the background, and I've got a lot more FighterZ gameplay than I do Overwatch gameplay handy, so that's what we're going with today. So I went to Reddit ahead of time and picked out all the actual questions and wrote them down ahead of time. By the way, if you're curious which side I'm on, just look for the one that starts with Android 21. So currently the one that's losing. So, first off, what do you do against Mei on King of the Hill maps? And the cheating answer is you need your team to actually put some effort into not getting fucked by Mei. Because basically the gist of it was, uncoordinated teams kind of get wrecked by Mei, pretty much, so what do you do about that? And if your team's just doing whatever the fuck, life is gonna be difficult like that sometimes, where there's not a lot you can do about it. You as an individual, you can play heroes that are good against Mei, so you can pick like Hanzo Widow, they can one-shot Mei, Junkrat's pretty good against Mei, Pharah's good against Mei, there's like not much Mei can do to Pharah other than hit her with the icicles, and as long as you got a support helping you, it won't actually be that bad, but Mei can kind of shoot at you. So those are your options as like an individual person, but like if your team's just splitting up and getting picked off by Mei constantly, there's only like so much you can do about that, right? Like if your team's bad and getting picked off because they're just running into Mei one by one, what are you gonna do? Life's difficult sometimes. But those are about your options as like an individual player, pretty much. Next, how do I deal with triple sniper comps? And pretty much pick the heroes that are good against the snipers, right? Because at that point, like, let's be real, what you can't pick a sniper and do much against them because you have to worry about so many other snipers. So you can pretty much pick, like, Winston, D.Va, Hammond, and try to dive them, and at least, like, occupy their time. Ideally, someone will actually help you, right? Like, maybe you pick one diving tank, and they'll pick the other diving tank, or you got a flanker or something. Again, if your teammates are just, like, walking out into the open, getting wrecked by the double snipers constantly rather than actually trying to do anything about them or play a little bit more cautiously, there's not a lot you can do about that. You can try, you can try and organize them and all that, and that's going to depend on the team you're playing with at the time, though, isn't it, as to whether or not they actually want to listen to you or not. So there's about your options as a single player is pick the diving tanks or a flanker, I suppose, as well. You have to be good at the flankers, though, is the caveat there. And try and dive them. At least occupy their time, if nothing else, or at least some of their time, because you can't dive all three simultaneously, but you can at least dive the one that seems to be the best and occupy a lot of their time. Next is, what is the combo for ROADHOG'S hook? Because the person couldn't manage to land a one-shot consistently. And if we're talking absolutely optimal, it's you right-click the person, hook them, take a slight step towards them, left-click melee. Because just taking like a half step closer to them makes it easier to actually get the kill. If it's a bigger character, obviously less important. God, I'm so bad. Jesus Christ. Less important, but yeah, you just take a half step towards them, and then suddenly it becomes a lot easier. The right click right at the start, not necessary. It's just if we're talking absolutely optimal, you can get a right click in, hook them, then left click and do that. And then do the half step melee, shot melee. But just hook, left click melee should be enough to kill anybody that doesn't have 200 health, basically. Or doesn't have more than 200 health. I've lost my place. Is it me, or is aiming on high ground incredibly hard? And I thought this was interesting because this person specifically stated that they had come over from Counter-Strike Go, where most aiming is horizontal, and there isn't actually that much vertical aiming. So they personally had a lot of trouble actually playing on high ground and aiming. I just thought that was very interesting, because I'd never really thought of it being that way. Because I've never really played CSGO, so I thought that the context was interesting, that because they've just never really had to play around high ground, so they found aiming vertically to be quite difficult. And basically the real question was, should I try and stay roughly ground level with the enemy team, and so that I can focus on horizontal aiming more, or try and adapt to playing on high ground? And they said they mostly played Anna, because they liked them and she matched their playstyle. And basically, it's try to adapt and get used to using the high ground, because using high ground is really, really strong in Overwatch. It's not really a negotiable thing. Like, you do have to be able to control the high ground in this game to at least some extent. So that's the answer. It's not really much more complicated than that. I just thought that that was very interesting, and that's mostly why I had included that one. So now we got tips for a new player looking to get into competitive, and for context, they played Soldier and Diva. They wanted to know what heroes they should look to expand to, and what areas of game sense to specifically focus on improving. And basically, I recommend trying to be able to play 2 or 3 heroes in each role, so two DPS, 2 tanks, and 2 healers, and ideally you also can play 1 main tank, 1 off tank, 1 main healer, and 1 off healer. If that seems like too much, like you don't want to invest that, I'm just picking these out randomly, by the way, I don't know what the fuck happens. If that seems too much to you, like you don't want to invest that much time into learning how to play that many heroes, you just don't like that many heroes, or you personally feel like you improve very slowly, so you'd rather focus on like a smaller number of heroes, try and just be able to play, like, focus on the role you still want to play, and try to be able to play a main healer and a main tank. Because usually people are more willing to play an off-tank or an off-healer. So if you don't want to play tank or healer specifically, you can usually get by being able to play the main version of it, because people are usually more willing to fill to an off one. But as for which ones, it kind of just really depends on which ones you personally prefer. Because, I mean, like, I personally prefer Zenyatta, but, you know, if you prefer Lucio, you play Lucio, you know? I personally prefer Moira, but if you prefer Anna, play Anna. Just kind of, like, you do you, basically. Focus on the heroes you like to play, and try to focus on the roles that, you personally enjoy playing, which is probably DPS. DPS is a little bit more, difficult, because you don't really have main DPS and off DPS exactly. You kind of do, because you've got DPS that are more utility as opposed to more direct damage. For example, Hanzo and Widow fulfill similar roles, but Widow is more an example of a high DPS, and Hanzo is more of a utility DPS. So you kinda get it like that, but not so much. So for DPS, it's more just which ones you prefer, though it does end up being more well-rounded, I think, if you pick a consistent DPS, like Soldier, McCree, Hanzo, Junkrat, and then a flanker, because then you are, basically, you can play, there's like the 2 basic kinds of compositions, which are more passive ones and more aggressive ones. So if you can play a flanker and a more static DPS, then you're ready to play on, like, both kinds of compositions. If they play a dive comp, you can pick a flanker, but if they pick a bunker comp, you can play Soldier or something like that. But, so, it just kind of depends who you prefer to play. As for what areas of specific game sense to improve on, positioning's the really obvious one to say, but it's not easy to give rules really for improving positioning, because a lot goes to it. Though the most straightforward one you could give is just try and make sure you're playing around cover as much as physically possible. Be that your tank's shield or just a wall. Try and have something nearby, at least, that you can use as cover if you need it. And try to think, like, if where I'm standing right now, if I get into danger, how easy is it for me to get out of danger and back to safety? Like, how far do I have to go? Those are, like, basic things, but a lot goes into positioning. And then, you know, there's other stuff like, I suppose, like, try to abuse high ground, you know? Kind of like, yeah, well, obviously, and it's not particularly helpful kind of stuff, right? So that's, like, the big game sense thing. If you want, you could include alt execution into game sense as well. Because, most ults are not hard to execute mechanically. It tends to be more about picking the right time to use the ultimate. So I think game sense plays more into ultimates than most people think it does. Because most people, especially one with like Dragon Blade, which people associate with being a very high skill cap ultimate, but is mostly about actually picking the right time to use it and then prioritizing your targets. It's not as mechanical as people think it is. We have one in here I lost. Yeah, no, that's the switched around. Am I just a vain asshole who only saved games he won? No, here we go. Lest I be accused of cherry-picking out nothing but games I won. So that's what I got for you game sense-wise. Next off was, how do I know if I'm not playing aggressively enough? And this was specifically related to Reaper, mostly, and expanded out a bit as to when to flank and when not to flank as Reaper. And it's very difficult to tell if you're not playing aggressively enough, because if you're playing more passively, it's difficult to make mistakes as such. You just usually miss out on opportunities, so it can be difficult to tell in the moment if you're not playing aggressively enough. I think this is something that gets easier to tell if you review your gameplay back, because then you've got more time to watch the game and think about things, and you're more likely to miss the opportunities you didn't see at the time. This is why I always say, if you're learning how to play a hero, or even just the game, to play as aggressively as possible while you're learning how to play that hero. And this will mean that you'll die a lot more frequently, because you don't know how to play the hero. But people, you'll end up, by doing that, you'll end up getting a good sense of what your hero's limits are. And so, as long as you're learning each time you fuck up, right, that was a little bit too aggressive, let's slow that one down a little bit, be a little bit more reserved next time, then you're learning meaningfully from all of these fuck-ups you're inevitably making. And that's how you end up getting a good sense of what your hero's limits are. Otherwise, you know, if you don't want to do that, you're just the more passive player by nature, what have you. Oh, God, I'm so bad, Jesus Christ. I recommend watching the videos back, because then it's easier to see opportunities you missed. And as for when to flank and when not to flank on Reaper, I honestly think that pretty much... God, I hate adult Gohan so much. I think that Reaper benefits almost always from flanking, to be honest with you. You can play him as a frontline DPS, yeah, but to me that's just not as effective of a way of playing Reaper, because if they don't know you're coming, if you're crafty and you at least, like, plan things out a little bit, like, this is what how I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna go teleport over there, this is how I'm gonna get out, this is what I'm gonna try and do. You plan it out a little bit, This is who I'm going to try and kill, that's how I get in. If I fuck up, this is what I'm going to do to try and get out. It's, Reaper, you know, if you sneak up on a person, they fucking die as long as you execute it well, right? Like, Reaper coming out at you from getting the surprise on you is one of the scariest heroes to really, like, get the drop on someone with, because he kills you so quickly, and it's not especially difficult to do with Reaper, right? Like, he's not as mechanically intense as someone like Tracer, but he also doesn't have the same kind of mobility as Tracer, which requires so Reaper requires a slightly more methodical kind of play style, where you need to plan things out a little bit more. Tracer, you can sort of ad-lib things a little bit more. You know, just kind of like go in, try and make something happen, and you've got room to, like, outplay people, so you don't need to plan things out as carefully. Not to imply Tracer doesn't benefit from forethought, but she is less dependent on it than someone like Reaper. So I think that you should basically always be trying to flank as Reaper as much as possible, because I just don't think he is as effective as a frontline DPS as he is a flanker. So there you go. Next up is Genji not viable at all right now, and oh, we both started Android 21. I'm on the left. I have Vegeta. What was I gonna say? Genji, right now, this is probably the most difficulty Genji's ever had at the time, because there's, more tanks around, basically, which Genji is, not super effective against. You do get to farm ult charge up quite a bit more frequently, but he's not so good at killing the tanks. Bridget's around, Batista's about to arrive, and he might make things more difficult for Genji as well. People are picking Winston and D.Va more frequently. Winston obviously better against Genji than D.Va is, but still. So Genji's having more trouble right now, probably than he ever has before, but I don't think Genji is unviable, no. Because Genji just has so much room to outplay people. Like, even the people that counter Genji, like, it's not like Genji's powerless against those people, right? Like, he can outplay McCree, he can outplay Winston, he can do something about it, he can outplay Bridget, right? There's things you can do, so no, I don't think he's completely unviable, and I don't really think he ever will be, but this is probably the most difficult time to play Genji that there's ever really been. But, by the same token, Ana's really popular right now as well, which means you're more likely to get Nanoblade in a given game than you were previously. So, but no, the short answer is I do think he's still viable, it's just slightly more difficult now. Next off was, what is good positioning for Tracer? And they gave a bit of a description of the way they played, and it was a very passive Genji kind of playstyle. Because when you play Genji, you got two kind of ways you can do it, where you can play behind the enemy team constantly, very aggressively, just always harassing people. But you can also play Genji more passively, where you kind of hang out with your team, poking and prodding at the enemy team, and then if you see an opportunity to kill someone, you can dash in, get the kill with the reset, and then dash back out again to safety. And both are very viable ways to play Genji. It just kind of depends on what your playstyle is. I'm personally more of a passive pick-up-people kind of player, not so much on the, mostly just I'm bad mechanically, pretty much, so I'm not very good at the, really aggressive style. But, Tracer doesn't suit that kind of playstyle as much as Genji does, because, her method of getting the pick on someone that she sees the opportunity for is just not as good as Genji's. Because Genji can dash in, get the reset, immediately dash out. It's very quick, right? Very, you can capitalize on it very quickly, get in and out very quickly. Whereas Tracer, it's just kind of harder to execute it mechanically as Tracer, in my opinion. You might disagree, probably depends if you have a preference for hit scan or projectile. But I find Tracer is just harder to execute in that regard. And Genji, I find, is just better for it. So I don't think that playstyle benefits Tracer as much as it does Genji. So basically, I think Tracer is best off play just constantly behind the enemy team, like, constantly harassing the backline, pretty much. And, people do struggle with that as Tracer, just because Tracer is hard to play, but they'll also end up getting into, like, skirmishes with people, then they end up dying to the person. And, Tracer, you benefit a lot from playing more, sneaky, and kind of like creeping up on people, blinking up behind them. Because Tracer is so fragile, pretty much, so that if the person sees you and you get into a firefight with them, it doesn't take a lot for you to die, especially against heroes that have some method of burst, right? Like if Soldier hits you a couple times and then rockets you, you die as Tracer. So that's very scary. So you want to try to avoid getting into a fight with that kind of guy. So you spend a little bit more time lurking behind them, trying to, like, line it all up, then get up behind him and just try and, like, kill him before he knows what the fuck, pretty much. Or if it's like McCree, you know, you try and blink in, bait it out of him, But you've also just got to be ready to recall at, like, a moment's notice as well, because any kind of badness can happen when you're playing Tracer. Like, things can go very badly very quickly, so you just gotta be ready to, like, recall as much as possible. But pretty much as aggressive as is possible, like, behind the enemy team, trying to do stuff to their backline. Because, those are just the people Tracer's good at fighting. Not always possible to get at the backline properly, in which case you can just bully a tank to filled space, pretty much. There isn't much many of the tanks can really do to kill Tracer, except for Roadhog. So you can just kind of, like, poke and prod at them, harass them. There isn't much they can do to you, and you just kind of, like, occupy their time, build some ult charge off of them while you're waiting for an opportunity to present itself. So, there you go. Next was what program to use to record VoDs, and if you have an NVIDIA graphics driver, Shadowplay I've heard is fantastic. I don't have Shadowplay, so I don't know, but I've heard it requires basically 0 strain on your computer. And you can do it, like, retroactively as well. Otherwise, if you don't have NVIDIA drivers, like me, like a scrub that I am, just use OBS. It's very... I'm trying to think how to word this. For some reason, I think I'm having a stroke. It's very not taxing on the hardware. It's not as untaxing as Shadowplay is. Shadowplay, I've heard, is better, but it's still very easy on the machine. Easy to set up. You don't have to stream. You can just record it. It's easy to set up. It just kind of works for the most part. That shouldn't have worked, by the way, but it did. So OBS or Shadowplay, if you can, are the best ones. Don't use Fraps. It's a trap. We just had nothing better back in the day, so we used Fraps. So we got better options now. So this question, I found a little bit odd, but, you know, hey, what some people don't know, they don't know, right? What's common sense to you is not necessarily common sense to someone else. What support ult counters ultimates like Self-Destruct, Riptire, and Deadeye? And the short answer is just Lucio. Lucio's is not fantastic still, because, I mean, Diva's Bomb does 1,000 damage at max, right? So, like, Sound Barrier doesn't necessarily save you, depending on how it goes, but Transcendence doesn't save you from getting one-shot, because they did specifically ask Lucio or Zenyatta, and Transcendence does not save you from getting one-shot, whereas Sound Barrier can save you from getting one-shot. Deadeye can be funky as well, as Lucio isn't as straightforward as Transcendence, but his can save you from getting one shot, Transcendence can't. So, there you go. Next was, is it still too early to call Baptista bad? Baptista? I was halfway between calling him Batista, which is my name for him, and his actual name. Is it still too early to call Batista bad? And basically, yes. It is much too early to call Batista bad. People were calling Bridget bad very early on, and look how quickly the opinion switched on that one. So yes, it is much too early to call Batista bad right now. Wait until they've been in competitive for a couple weeks, and then we'll see how it works out. Because quick play is also a very bad barometer regardless. But yes, it's still too early as well. How to use Nano Boost in uncoordinated teams, and how to use Nano Boost outside of the classic Nano Blade combo. For the uncoordinated teams, I mean, it's pretty much, just pick the person you think is best, pretty much. Ideally, they also still have an ultimate you can use to combo with it, such as Nano Blade, Attack Visor, Earth Shatter, anything like that, you know, even, like, Barrage, anything like that, makes it easier as well. But, pretty much, like, if they're uncoordinated, you pretty much just pick the best player you see and focus on it. Is what I recommend doing if you're playing a support in general and you feel like your team is constantly staggering or they're just not coordinated, no one wants to team up or anything, like group up or anything like that. Just find the player that seems like they are the best and pocket the fuck out of that person. Try and make it as easy as possible for that person who you've determined is best to try and carry the game. You know, sometimes you'll want to use it on, like, the Genji, but the Genji's not coordinated, so he has not waited for you to get your ultimate, or he's doing it, like, behind walls where you can't see him, like, all kinds of foolishness. There's nothing you can do about that situation. Like, you're just, like, yeah, you just gotta tell Genji, I can't see you through walls, man, you're gonna have to work with me a little bit here, you know? But yeah, you pretty much just pick the one you think is best and try and pick them. There are some people where it requires very little skill to actually do anything with the Nano Boost. So you can just wait till, like, Reinhardt's pretty much in the enemy team and Nano Boost that guy, wait for him to pick a fight and Nano Boost him. And Reinhardt's got, like, no skill requirement to do damage with his Nano Boost, right? So you can pretty much just nano him, and you'll probably get decent results, if not optimal results. Someone like Winston is a very safe bet as well. Very hard to fuck up Winston mechanically. Don't do it when he's Primal Rage, though. Nano Boost Primal Rage is quite bad. Just do it to Winston flat out. Yeah, so that's where you got, like, uncoordinated-wise. Like, if it's you want to do it with this person, but they just aren't working with you, all you can do is try and get them to work with you, and if they don't want to still, you gotta kind of eat shit on that one. Sucks to say, right? You don't want to hear it, but that's just kind of how it is sometimes. We can't make people do what we want, unfortunately. And as for when to use it outside of the classic Nano Blade, pretty much, like, you can use it to save people. Reinhardt does something stupid, you can use it to save him. Your tank just does something stupid in general, you can use it to save him. Otherwise, just pick people that are safe bets, pretty much. Like, there are people, if you determine that, like, your Hanzo is really good or something like that, you can nano him and maybe get decent results out of it, but there are certain heroes that are just, like, safe bets, right? Like, other good ultimates to use, obviously, like Nano Visor and such, but like, Diva's a safe bet, Winston's a safe bet, Reinhardt's a safe bet. They'll pretty much, always get some results, at least. So, pretty much, like, those kinds of people, or to use it to save someone outside of Nano Blade. So, how do I deal with Sombra as Hammond? Now, I don't play Hammond, as you might know. I've never really known much about Hammond, but a Sombra main actually had input for this specifically, as to what she found annoying from Hammond players. And the advice she gave was play a lot more passively, because if you go ham, you're pretty much just going to get dunked on as soon, because she'll just, like, wait for you to go ham, hack you, and then you die and turbo feed, which was, I think, their exact wording for that one. Going for isolated targets and just trying to get in and out as quickly as possible, pretty much. They did stress that, like, you want to spend as little time fighting as possible, because the more time you spend fighting, the longer you're just exposing yourself to getting hacked and fucked over, pretty much. And if it feels like the Sombra is just kind of like waiting around for you to hack you as soon as you try and like pile drive in or something, they recommended unballing in the air and just like shooting at Sombra a little bit and then proceeding as normal to interrupt the hack, and then proceeding as normal after that point while you try and like get your engage off pretty much. But they mostly stress playing more passively and just spending... when you pick an engagement, try to do it on isolated targets and as quickly as possible. Pretty much. So, I don't know how to play Hammond, but that came from a Sombra player, so there you go. That's what you get. This one was, does anyone feel like Batista and Soldier 76 should swap their healing abilities? And the point they made was, because Soldier has Sprint, he's a lot more, mobile, like, in and out than Batista was, which, I mean, you can debate with, but they made the point that if you've got Sprint, it makes more sense as a utility ability to have the one where you run past someone, burst heal, and then run off and go about your business, whereas Batista is a little bit more justified in, like, buckling down in a location than Soldier is sometimes, right? Mostly just because Sprint makes more sense with having a burst heal ability rather than having to stick around, pretty much. And that's a fair argument, I think, honestly. It does make more sense in terms of synergy with Soldier's other abilities for him to have the one where you could just sprint past people, heal, and then run off again. He is encouraged to kind of, like, stick and move a little bit more than Batista is. So it's a pretty good argument, honestly, and I don't think they'll do it, but I thought it was interesting to think about, if nothing else. No, I don't really have any particular input for it. I just thought it was an interesting thought. Similarly to when I had nothing much to say about should I use high ground or not, I just thought it was an interesting point. Or a thing to talk about. Next off was, should I one-trick Moira to Plat and Diamond? And they said they picked up Moira, and they were concerned that she wasn't viable at higher ranks, and asked if they should just switch to Zenyatta instead. And, you know, I like Moira. Moira's my main, and I'll say yes. She, I could have killed that guy. What the fuck was I doing? I'll be real with you. You pretty much have to want to play Moira, because there's no real reason to pick Moira over Ana, pretty much. Ana's just kind of better than Moira is. What Moira has going for her is she's more well-rounded than Ana is. She's more survivable than Ana is, but while Ana has very clearly defined weaknesses, she's got very clearly defined strengths as well, and what she's good at, she's very good at. So I think it balances out her negatives more than enough. Whereas Moira, she'll rarely be the worst choice you can make in terms of healer, but she'll also almost never be the best choice you can make as far as healers go either. So you pretty much have to want to play Moira. You can play Moira at high ranks. I've done it. It's no big deal. It is harder than playing Ana, though, and you pretty much have to want to do it. You have to like Moira, basically. But yeah, you can, like, play Moira, no problem. She is, in fact, the hero I recommend picking in lower ranks if you aren't good at Ana, just because she can have a big impact. She's got very big healing output, so she's good at keeping people alive, even when they don't necessarily deserve it. And she gets to do damage as well, so I think she's really good for lower ranks, in particular. But yes, you can, pretty much. God, I should have seen that one coming. Jesus Christ. If you should switch to Zen, I mean, Zen's not a main healer, so it kind of depends on what you're about, right? Like, you can play Zen as well, because Zen's the off healer, but, like, Zen's never going to be a substitute for Moira, because Zen's not a main healer. But if you're talking about just maining a hero, Zen is probably also better to main on paper than Moira is, just because, again, Zen's got weaknesses, but he's also got very clearly defined strengths, and what, like, Discord and Transcendence are really strong effects. And again, you know, Moira, well-rounded, but a jack of all trades is a master of none, as we've all heard 1,000 or so times. So, there you go. You pretty much have to want it. So next was, how come pro players don't play anti-tank heroes like Reaper or Bastion, given the prevalence of triple tank comps? And basically, pros are better at coordinating than random plebs are in comp. So, yes, Reaper and Bastion can kill tanks, but they also greatly benefit from the enemy team not being coordinated. Like, when people were complaining about Reaper constantly, higher ranks were mostly unchanged in terms of meta, but lower rank people were complaining about Reaper much more frequently. And the reason for that is higher rank players are better at coordinating and not letting Reaper just hold down W and left click and kill their entire team, right? So, and Bastion's the same way. Like, Bastion benefits from people that just don't want to work together, pretty much. And if your team works together, that hero's not nearly as effective, so... And I mean, you still see these heroes occasionally in, like, pro games, so it's not like they never get picked, but... just because of the fact those heroes benefit from uncoordinated teams, they're much less good in a competitive setting, like the Overwatch League. And next off was, how can... And this is the last one I have as well. How can players be more aware of the mistakes they make? And the most simple answer is, every time you die, just try and think about why you died, pretty much. And you can make mistakes without dying as well, so it doesn't always help necessarily, but this is just a very straightforward, like, starting point, pretty much. When you die, just try and think about, like, why you died. And what I mean by that specifically is, try and figure out if you, made a bad decision, or you made an okay decision and you just executed badly. Because those two things tell you different things that you need to work on. Because if you made the correct decision and just executed it incorrectly, then next time you're in that position, you're like, alright, well, I can make that decision again. It was an okay decision, I just didn't do it properly, right? Whereas if you made a bad decision, that requires a little bit more effort, because then, alright, you go, alright, it was a bad decision, actually, right? I don't see how I could have, like, mechanically gotten out of what happened. So then you try and think, alright, so what was the point at which I made the mistake? Was it the decision to go in at all? Was it the way I did it? Could I have gone a better way? Could I have retreated a better way? Should I have used my ult at a different time? Did I not use one of my abilities? There's a few different things that can be the decision mistake, so you might have to work through it a couple of steps at a time to kind of troubleshoot the problem. But you pretty much just try and think through it. Alright, so, did I have my abilities? Did I use all my abilities? How could I have used my abilities better if I did? That can be mechanical as well, to be fair. But you just try and figure out where the issue occurred, either mechanical or decision, and then you try and work it out. And if it's a decision-based mistake, then just if you determine what the issue was, and this is a lot easier as well if you're watching a video back, because you can, when you die, you can pause and think about it, like, alright, so what happened there? And you can go back a little bit more freely and, like, examine the play a little bit more closely and think about it. Alright, so where was the issue, and think about it a little bit more clearly. And then the next time you're in that kind of position, you're just, you're more likely to recognize the correct play, pretty much. It might take a few times, or a few failed attempts to actually get the information to stick in your mind, but that's like the very simple one to go for. If you do watch your gameplay back as well, you watch your own VoDs, then another thing you can do is try and spot the opportunities you didn't see at the time. Because it's a lot easier when you don't have to worry about personally playing the game. You can think, oh shit, I didn't see that guy over there strayed away from his team and I had my ultimate. So, like, I could have gone in right here, picked this guy off, used my ultimate, and then gone over to fight the team off of, like, that tempo game. Right? Like, you can kind of, you've got more mental bandwidth currently available to look for the plays that you missed at the time. So, but those can be harder to identify, just because it's, you know, if you die, it's an obvious mistake you made. Whereas missing an opportunity you had is not as obvious of a mistake you made, but also is kind of important. I do recommend just starting with, like, especially if you're a newer player, just recommend starting with the deaths and try to figure out why you died and, like, troubleshoot out the problem, pretty much. And that's mostly what I got for you, to be honest, and we'll wait for this game to finish first. So that's all the questions I've got for you, though. Let me know what you think about this format, pretty much, because that'll pretty much decide if I keep doing it. The video, I think, will have been shorter at this point than usual, but I can't see the timer right now, so I don't know. It's a little bit more streamlined, because I don't have to pick through the questions as it's happening, at least, and there's a little bit more visually going on. I imagine most people just listen to the video in the background while they're doing something else, which is fine. That's mostly how I use YouTube, to be honest with you. But if you do want to, like, watch the video, something like this is probably a little bit more visually interesting than just the Reddit page and my dumb face. So let me know what you think about it. Yeah, and now we're just playing fighters at this point, right? Which is, you know, every week it feels like, except today, funnily enough, the time Fighters is playing in the background, I always compare Overwatch to it, or at least a fighting game in some way or another, and we actually didn't do that this week. But we've just had a fighting game playing in the background anyway. To be honest with you, I just like Fighters because it's a lot easier than most other fighting games. You don't have to think too hard about what you're trying to do, to be honest with you. Whereas something like Street Fighter is a little bit more, I don't want to say cerebral, because I think that's giving the game more credit than it deserves. It's a little bit more based around, neutral. God, what the fuck is wrong with me? Jesus Christ. Well, what actually happened was I ran out of bar. I thought I had 2 bars, and I was gonna, like, dunk the guy. It's also why I like Vegeta. He's, very easy to play mechanically, compared to, oh Jesus, most other characters in the game. Doesn't have to use a lot of assists to extend his combos, whereas Android 21 is a lot harder mechanically, because basically all her combos are like using assists to extend them. You know, not to get too inside baseball about what's going on in this game that you probably don't play, honestly. I don't think that necessarily matters with fighting games in terms of watching them. I don't think you really need to know what's going on exactly to get something out of it. Oh, look at that, we end with a game that I lost in. Fantastic. Goku beat Vegeta, which is the fusion of Goku and Vegeta. So that's nice and lore-friendly right there. So there you go. That's all I got. So thank you very much for watching. If you did, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I've started streaming on Twitch Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 7 p.m. EST till 10 or 11 p.m. EST. A little bit inconsistent lately. We'll try and get that back on schedule in the near future. If you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middle quality in the future, and I hope you found the video helpful.